MoKenStef, Los Angeles, California, active since 1994. In the summer of 1995, the R&B landscape was flooded with catchy melodies and an undeniable groove that made artists like TLC, SWV, and Xscape household names. The music industry was booming, and so were the many female groups that carried the torch for 90s R&B. That year, another trio, MoKenStef, briefly joined the conversation. Their sultry, mid-tempo single, He's Mine, became an anthem for women battling silent rivalries, marking the group's place in R&B history. It was bold, confident, and relatable, riding the momentum of an era where love, heartbreak, and infidelity were the dominant themes. The song peaked at number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100 and climbed to number 2 on the Hot R&B and Hip Hop Songs chart, pushing their name into the mainstream and earning them a gold certification. For a moment, it seemed like MoKenStef had cracked the code. 3 talented women with chemistry, a distinct sound, and a hit single that was being played everywhere. But just as quickly as they arrived, they disappeared. MoKenStef, comprised of Monifa Bethune, Kenya Hadley, and Stephanie Sinclair, had everything a successful R&B group needed on paper. They had the looks, the harmonies, and the industry connections to support them. Their debut album, As Is, was released that same year, attempting to build on the success of He's Mine. But unlike TLC, who dominated the charts with Crazy Sexy Cool, or SWV, who solidified their legacies with hits across multiple albums, MoKenStef's run was cut short. Their debut album failed to gain traction, and their momentum stalled before it ever truly picked up. What was supposed to be the start of a promising career became their only chapter. No major follow-up single, no second album, no reinvention, just a one-hit wonder label that would stick with them for decades. Their rise was brief, their fall was swift, and by the late 90s, they were already a forgotten name. Unlike other female R&B groups who managed to evolve and withstand industry shifts, MoKenStef became a casualty of an era that produced countless R&B acts, but only a few lasting stars. Their story is one of missed potential, industry setbacks, and the harsh reality of music's revolving door. MoKenStef had a moment, but moments aren't enough to sustain a career. Here's how a promising trio went from radio darlings to a distant memory in just a few years. What happened? Let's talk about it. Salute to Master Jedi 82 on IG for this request. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth Music. Let's get it. Take a minute to like, subscribe, and comment on who I should do next. MoKenStef was formed in the early 90s in Los Angeles, California, at a time when R&B girl groups were thriving. Their group name was a blend of the first syllables of their names, Monifa, Kenya, and Stephanie. The trio began as backup singers and dancers before stepping into the spotlight, eventually signing with Outburst Records, a small label under Def Jam. In '95, they released their debut album, As Is, leading to their breakout single, He's Mine. The song, built on a sample of Deborah Law's 1981 track, Very Special, was a massive success, pushing them onto the Billboard charts and into heavy radio rotation. But despite their momentum, the album failed to produce another hit. The follow-up singles, Sex in the Rain and Baby Come Close, barely made an impact. With low album sales and minimal label support, MoKenStef quietly faded out the industry, never releasing a second album. Stunt number 1, One-Hit Wonder Syndrome. The biggest hurdle MoKenStef faced was the weight of being labeled a one-hit wonder before they ever had a chance to prove otherwise. He's Mine was an undeniable hit, but it also became a curse. The success of the song was so massive that it overshadowed the rest of their music, and when their follow-up singles failed to capture the same magic, they quickly lost momentum. Their second single, Sex in the Rain, was a complete departure from what made He's Mine a success. Instead of a relatable, engaging storyline backed by a recognizable sample, it was a more sensual, slow-paced song that lacked the same radio appeal. The song failed to chart, and with no follow-up hit to sustain them, MoKenStef began fading from public attention. Their third single, Baby Come Close, barely made a ripple in the industry. Without another hit, their album struggled commercially, never reaching gold status despite He's Mine achieving that milestone on its own. This proved that one song alone wasn't enough to sustain an album's success without additional hits to support it. This was the defining difference between MoKenStef and groups like TLC, SWV, and Xscape. Those groups had multiple hits that gave them staying power. TLC had Creep, Red Light Special, and Waterfalls, all in the same era. SWV had Weak, Human Nature, and I'm So Into You. MoKenStef had He's Mine, and that was it. Being a one-hit wonder in the 90s music industry was a death sentence for many artists. Without a second successful single, labels lost interest, radio stations stopped playing your music, and fans move on to the next big thing. MoKenStef's inability to capitalize on their breakout moment made them a footnote in R&B history instead of a staple, leaving them unable to carve out their own lane in a highly competitive genre. Stunt number 2, lack of strong label support and industry push. One of the biggest disadvantages MoKenStef faced was the lack of major label push that other successful R&B girl groups benefited from. While they were signed to Outburst Records, a small subsidiary under Def Jam, the label was primarily focused on hip-hop rather than R&B. This meant they lacked the aggressive marketing and long-term investment that their contemporaries at larger, more R&B-focused labels received. Without that foundation, their chances of longevity was slim from the beginning. TLC had LaFace Records, which gave them access to top-tier producers like Babyface and L.A. Reid. SWV had RCA, a label with strong industry reach and deep connections in radio. Even Total, who had a similar sultry R&B sound, had the backing of Bad Boy Records, meaning they were tied to Puff Daddy's promotional machine and his growing influence in music. MoKenStef, on the other hand, lacked those advantages, making it difficult to grow beyond their initial success. The difference was clear in how their debut album As Is was handled. After He's Mine, a strong follow-up should have been heavily promoted, remixed, or even re-recorded to keep them in rotation. Instead, their next singles were barely marketed, received minimal radio spins, and had no significant music video presence. While other groups were releasing multiple singles that kept their albums alive for years, MoKenStef's project fizzled out quickly. Without additional hits, their names started to fade from conversations, and the label had little incentive to invest further. MoKenStef also lacked the star power collaborations that could have extended their career. TLC had Left Eye's media presence, SWV had Teddy Riley's production, and Total had features with the Notorious B.I.G. MoKenStef had none of that. Their label failed to position them as long-term artists, and without industry backing, they quickly became an afterthought, proving that even talent and a hit song weren't enough to survive in the golden era. Stunt number 3, image and identity challenges. Another factor that contributed to MoKenStef's short-lived success was their lack of a distinct identity in an era where image played a crucial role in music. The 90s R&B scene was dominated by groups that had clear branding and marketable personas. TLC had their crazy, sexy, cool dynamic, with each member embodying a unique personality. Left Eye as the wild one, Chili as the sweet one, and T-Boz as the laid-back leader, and En Vogue leaned into a sophisticated powerhouse vocal image. MoKenStef, however, never had a strong individual or collective identity that made them stand out beyond their hit song. Even their name, MoKenStef, while creative, didn't immediately connect with audiences in a way that was easy to remember. Unlike TLC or SWV, which were simple, catchy, and became household names, MoKenStef's branding was harder to grasp. For casual listeners, it wasn't immediately clear who they were, what their group dynamic was, or what made them unique beyond He's Mine. Their style and presentation also didn't set them apart in a way their competitors did. Other groups had distinct fashion choices, baggy, colorful clothing in the early years, and sleek, sexy looks as they matured. Total had the gritty, bad girl image that fit perfectly with Bad Boy's branding. MoKenStef's look and vibe, while attractive, didn't establish a strong enough visual identity to stick with audiences beyond their debut. Without a memorable group dynamic, star power, or a signature style, MoKenStef blended in rather than standing out. In the 90s music industry, where image was just as important as talent, the lack of distinction made it even easier for them to fade away. All in all, MoKenStef's journey in the music industry was brief, but their impact, though small, was undeniable. He's Mine remains a classic in 90s R&B, a song that still gets airplay and sparks nostalgia for fans of that era. But beyond that, their career missed expectations their debut hit song created. Without multiple hits, strong label backing, or a distinct image, MoKenStef quickly fell behind as other groups continued evolving. The 90s music industry was cutthroat, and without the right strategy, even promising artists could disappear overnight. Today, MoKenStef's members have largely stayed out the public eye. While they may not have reached the heights of their peers, their brief moment in the spotlight left behind a song that still resonates, a lasting footprint in an era of R&B greatness. Salute, much respect, but for these reasons, their growth was stunted. It's your boy JC, Stunted Growth Music, and I'm out.